ahead and turn it over to Alan. Oh, yes, and we are now recording. With that, I'll turn it over to Alan Fye to introduce NVTC's role, their work, and get us kicked off here. Alan?
All right, thank you, Stuart, and welcome everybody. I'm really excited to have you on here. As Stuart said, Xavier Harmony is going to give you a really quick overview of a lot of the work that we're doing at NVTC related to Boston, Northern Virginia. A little bit of background: we've been around for almost 60 years and be heavily involved with transit and every different aspect of Northern Virginia, Metro Rail, Metro Bus, VRE, all kinds of things. We work very closely, like Stuart said, with all of our partners across Northern Virginia, across the river, and even down in Richmond. So we're really excited to be a part of this, advancing the work, the really important work of bus in Northern Virginia. We're a commission that is very engaged. We're excited to have commissioners that are heavily engaged and really care about bus, and they really do work with us very closely to make sure that the work that we're doing is getting out there and being effective in the real world for everyday users. So thank you for joining, and we're happy to coordinate this with Coalition for Smarter Growth. And I'll turn it back over to you, Stuart.
Thank you. And also thanks to Matt and Monique over at NVTC for their additional help with promotion. We're going to start off with Martin Barna from Dash to give us a briefing. I'm going to put in the chat his quick title and bio so that you have it. The other thing is we'll keep close time, so to keep us moving, put your questions in the chat. We'll monitor those, but we'll wait till the end for the Q&A period. So Martin, we can see your screen. Go ahead.
All righty. Thank you very much, Stuart. It's an honor to be here with NVTC and CSG. I'm really looking forward to hearing about all the exciting projects that are going on around the region with buses. I can tell you from our corner down here in Alexandria, we've had a very exciting and eventful last couple of years, COVID notwithstanding. We've had several major projects and programs that we've been able to implement and that we're now seeing the results from. So I'm going to be able to share some of the findings and successes that we've seen on those projects. So the first project that I'm going to talk about is the new Dash network. And really, this is our network redesign project. It started with the Alexandria Transit Vision Plan, or ATV, that was adopted by our board back in 2019. The ultimate product of the ATV was a 2022 and a 2030 bus network that we are kind of building towards, is what we think is in the best interest and the future needs of our community. But even more so, it was a policy level discussion about what the role of buses should be in Alexandria to help us meet a lot of the goals we're trying to achieve. And based on that policy level discussion, the determination was made that we want to design a network that is geared more towards ridership oriented goals. So really encouraging ridership and building ridership to help us with our environmental, our congestion mitigation goals, economic goals, and the like. So fast forward now to, and actually I should say, in order to build that ridership, the idea was that we want to put more useful service in more places where more people can use it. So fast forward to September 2021, and this is the new Dash network that you're looking at right now. We implemented back in 2021. The thing to highlight with this is the red lines. Those are our frequent all-day routes. In order for a line to be red, it needs to run every 15 minutes or better, all day, 7 days a week. So not just peak service, but middays, evenings, and weekends. And really what we were able to do is put that frequent service in places where a lot of people can use it. So really our high density corridors, our major activity centers connected to our metro rail stations. And the upshot of that is this graph that I like to share, which shows the percentage of residents and jobs in Alexandria that now have access to that frequent all-day service, that are within close proximity to a bus stop where services come in at least every 15 minutes or better all day, 7 days a week. So you can see here that among all residents, 73% now have access to that level of service. That's an additional 60,000 residents over what we had before. You can see the breakdown from other demographic sectors. I would highlight the low income. We're particularly proud that 81% of low income residents in Alexandria now are within walking distance of frequent all day bus service. And that can be really transformative in their ability to get around to different opportunities. And then moving over to jobs, always want to emphasize the impact on accessibility to jobs. You can see that we've also had a major increase in the number of jobs that are accessible to this frequent all day service that's so useful. Actually 25,000 additional jobs between the previous network and the new network that we implemented in September of 2021. And just one other stat on those jobs, if you were to actually map out all the residents of Alexandria and how far they can get in 45 minutes using transit, and compare the old network versus the new network. And actually, if you looked at the jobs they can access in that bubble, they are now able to access via transit 20% more jobs for the typical resident. So really, really building up that accessibility, not just to transit, but to useful transit. And so we were able to do that. And we were also extremely fortunate. We were able to couple that with making transit more affordable at the exact same time. On September 5th, 2021, new network launched and also free fares. Free fares was a major commitment from our city leadership and our council. They really wanted to help folks as we were recovering from the pandemic, particularly low income households. So they were able to, and also to promote ridership on our brand new network. So they were able to increase the subsidy for Dash by about $1.5 million that first year to help offset lost revenues. We were then also able to secure over $7 million across 4 years from the state grant program sponsored by DRPT, the TRIP program. So we're able to also offset revenues through that. And through the requirements of that program, we are fare free for a 4-year period. So through FY25, Dash is fare free on all buses. So really grateful for that. And the upshot is that we've seen really historic ridership growth since we've made those changes back in September of 2021. This graph shows our monthly ridership trends over the last 7 fiscal years. Going chronologically, the light gray kind of skyscraper skyline in the background, that's our pre-COVID baseline that we're using from month by month for 2017 to 2020. You contrast that with the red bars in the bottom right, which is the first 4 months of COVID. You can see the impact there. We had continued impact with the dark gray bars as COVID bore on. And then the green bars, our last fiscal year, we were able to implement the new network and free fares September of 2021. And you can see the green bars going left to right have a strong increase going up through last spring. And then the blue line at the top is the current fiscal year. And as you can see there, we're tracking above our pre-COVID ridership levels, which is a huge benchmark for us. I think we're one of just maybe 2 agencies in the region that have that right now. I think Fairfax Q being the other with they're also fare free. But also want to highlight the 380,000 boardings that you see here in September. That was the single highest ridership month for Dash in the last 7 years. So you have to go back to 2015 to find a month with higher ridership than that. So really proud of that. And then it's not shown here, but our average daily boardings did double year over year in the first 12 months of our new network and free fares, with the biggest increases showing on middays, evenings, and weekends. So a lot of off-peak ridership growth. Obviously, the numbers are really strong and great to talk about, but we also wanted to kind of dig a little deeper into the what's behind the numbers and the story that we can tell. So we've done a lot of outreach and surveys of our customers to understand, how they've changed their riding habits and what are the biggest factors in why they're riding more. And just in a nutshell, what we found is that first, we have a lot of new riders. 22% of the riders that we surveyed were new riders that had started riding in the last year. So since the changes were made. Then we also have over 70% of our existing riders were riding Dash more. So both the combination of new riders and existing riders that are riding more. And if you were to break those out by just low income riders, both of those numbers would be even higher. So you can see that there's been a strong benefit among the low income community, which is one of the main intents of the programs. And then just the golden question has been, what's the biggest factor contributing to this ridership growth? According to our survey data, which is kind of the main thing that we've been using, we found the increased frequency. So the more frequent service on the new Dash network, that's been the leading factor that was cited by customers, but just a half step behind that was free fares. So those were kind of 1 and 1A in terms of the factors contributing the most to the ridership growth. Other factors like longer service hours, more useful routes, those were also cited. Not quite as much. And then actually high fuel prices was down towards the bottom of the factors. So that was interesting. And I'm running a little short on time, so I will just quickly highlight Potomac Yard Metro. We're excited that Potomac Yard Metro, the new infill station on the blue and yellow line, will be opening in May. So we're working very closely with WMATA and the city to make sure that we've got really great bus service feeding into that station to help bring folks from the surrounding areas. So that's exciting. That'll be coming up in the next few months. And then Dash has also been a leader on fleet electrification. I think we were the first agency in the state of Virginia to have electric buses, and we now have 14 of our 101 total fleet size is electric buses. And we are looking to continue that transition such that we'll have a full fleet transition by 2037. So that's all from me. Thank you, Stuart.
Okay, pretty good on time. Got a little extra in there, but that's great. We've been joined by Bill Pugh, who's CSG Senior Policy Fellow, and a plug for him because he participated with so many others in Alexandria on the Potomac Yard Metro studies and design. We're next going to go to Michael Felcho, who's going to talk about Fairfax's transit, the Fairfax Connector, what they've been doing for route redesign, fares, and other improvements. So we're going to turn it over to Michael to share his screen. Again, put your questions in the chat and we'll get to them after all the presentations. Michael, go ahead to full screen and you've got it.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Great, thanks, Martin, for all that great information. Once again, my name is Michael Felchow. I'm with Fairfax County Department of Transportation Transit Services Division. I'm going to be going over two small things that we've done recently or going to be doing. The Silver Line Phase 2 bus service plan. As you all know, many of you know, the Silver Line has now opened, adding multiple new stations up in the Reston Herndon area. We also have a trip program, and I'll get into that in a moment. Sorry. Well, to go backwards to go forwards, or forwards to go backwards, we had a system that was up in the Reston Herndon area that was primarily designed to get people to the Wheelie Metro Station. You can see it here on the map. We'll have a lot of lines. A lot of our routes were all going to the Wheelie Reston East Station. Took a lot of resources to do that. It made the assumption that everybody that was wanted to ride the bus wanted to get to the Metro Rail. We found out through our onboard survey that only about 30% of the riders pre-pandemic wanted to use the Metro Rail. The rest of them wanted to get in and around the area of the Reston Herndon. So we took the opportunity with the new Silver Line to realign our routes, and that allowed us to reinvest our resources back into the network, improving our frequencies on many routes and making new connections, which I'll talk about that later. But it allowed us to reconnect our entire network. In addition to that, we made sure that every single route goes to at least 1 to 2 Metro Rail stations. So we didn't leave out Metro Rail. People can still now get to Metro Rail, but they're going to be able to get there faster than meandering through the community and then getting on the toll road to go over to Wheelie and then have the bus, what we call deadhead, all the way back to where it started. So with that, we did a lot of outreach to make sure we are doing what we needed to get done. We had a market survey back in 2016. That was county-wide, and that really asked people, why do you not use transit? And if you used to use transit and you stopped, why did you stop? It allowed us to identify some barriers that are in the county in terms of using transit, or at least the bus. The onboard survey, which was has been a few years old right now, was done before the pandemic, about 2,500 respondents. What we got there is we were able to identify the origin and destination of people, their demographic information, why they use the bus, where they're trying to go, and what they would like to see in terms of improvement. For just the study that we did on the improvements on the routes in the Reston Herndon area, we had about 3 rounds of public meetings and online surveys. We got over 1,700 responses to our online surveys, allowed us to refine the plan and develop new routes. What we heard from people is they want more frequency. And for those of you that are not familiar with all the lingo of transit, frequency is how often the bus comes by in the direction that you're traveling in. People wanted more off-peak, non-rush hour weekend service. They also wanted greater span of service, meaning how often the bus, how long the bus operates in a day and how many days of the week the bus operates. People wanted to see more midday service, more weekend service, more early and late service. They also wanted faster travel times, more streamlined buses, but they also wanted greater connectivity, making sure they can get to the places they need to get to. Schools, hospitals, major employment centers. And they wanted all this information done in a user-friendly fashion. So there's a sort of a summary of what our new system is. It's up and running right now. Today, it opened on November 16th, one day after the Silver Line opened up. It has new connections to Chantilly and Centerville along the Dallas corridor. It connects our system to Loudoun system up in the Loudoun Community College campus. It also connects Herndon to Sterling. There was a big connection, a gap missing in our network, and people in the Herndon area wanted to get to Sterling and vice versa. We were able to increase our frequency on many routes to 20 minutes. We were able to add more midday service and all-day service, provide greater connectivity, more direct routes, while shortening travel times. Now, Martin had mentioned that they did an analysis to show the travel shed. We did the exact same thing. We had a significant, I think it's around 20% or more increase in how far people can now travel with this new system. We also focused on making sure that people who are transit reliant and who don't have a lot of other choices in terms of transportation, that we provided service to them. We maintain our bus stop coverage. This is a very large area, so we need to make sure that the people who are presently getting service continues to get service. We also improved our access to middle schools and high schools. That's important because about 7% of our ridership is in fact middle school and high schoolers. So what did we change? We modified 19 of the routes that are in that area. There were about 30 routes in that area prior to the change. We added 4 new routes and replaced 12 routes. And many of these routes were routes that were running along the tollway, which we didn't need anymore because we have the Metro Rail, or they were duplicates once we modified the other 19 routes. So, and I'll just mention real quickly some of the new routes that we have, like the 901 goes all the way, starts in Herndon, goes all the way down to Chantilly and Centerville. Route 954 you see right here, that goes from Herndon up to Sterling. So brand new connections, operate all day long. So I'm going to jump into another slide here. I'm not going to go through every single one of these. This is a lot of information, but I'm going to highlight
Michael,
a few.
we're getting tight on time, about 30 seconds.
I will just tell you, these are all the new changes that we've made. We've improved a lot of frequency, made a lot of improvements in connectivity. I'm gonna jump through these maps and go right to the end. And the trip fare program that we have, just like Martin was saying in Alexandria, we have one. We got $4.5 million for 3 years. This is a half fare program for people who are eligible, low income population and households. We've been dealing with a lot. We've been working with a lot of partners. And this is the brochure that we have developed to inform the public of this new program. And that's what I have, and I'm done. And I will stop sharing.
Thank you. Excellent. And you keep hearing how important frequency is, and you're also getting a great overview on other aspects of it. One of the questions we'll ask at the end came from Monique about the demographics of ridership. I think you were asking in Alexandria, Monique, but we can also ask that for Fairfax and cover that at the end. We're next going to go to, I lost track here. We're going to go to Xavier Harmony. He's going to talk about the bus rapid transit plans in Northern Virginia that NVTC has been spearheading in partnership with the local governments.
Hi all, my name is Xavier Harmony. I'm a senior program manager at NVTC and I manage our Transit Resource Center. I'm going to go over BRT, what it is, what is being planned, and where we are heading as a region. So starting, as everyone here might not know what BRT is, or bus rapid transit, it's a kind of specialized high quality bus transit service. It increases bus capacity and reliability. And you can sort of consider it as a toolbox of different features. So you don't have to have all these kinds of features, but the more you have together, the more efficient your service will be. So like service planning features like high frequency, infrastructure features like bus only lanes, vehicle features like larger buses, special policies like off-board fare payment, and even communications like branding are all important parts of BRT. So where might you be able to see it in our region? The first example that we sort of saw in the region was the 2014 Metroway. It's the goes from Battery Road Metro Station to Pentagon City, so Alexandria and Arlington. It's about 17 stations. Some of those are two-way stations, or about 7 miles, and the headway ranges from 12 to 20 minutes through the day. So just in this graph at the bottom, you can sort of see how ridership changes over time. So before the BRT opened, there was a slowly decreasing ridership on the existing route, but once the BRT opened, there was a 250% increase in ridership pre-pandemic. While obviously it took a hit post-pandemic, the huge change really shows what BRT can do. So what is NVTC working on? We are working on our own BRT system right now. What's particularly challenging about this system is that it covers 4 jurisdictions. It goes from Mark Center in Alexandria through Fairfax, and then Falls Church, touching Arlington a little bit before going back into Fairfax again. It's 22 stations over 14 miles. It's a big corridor. There is some existing service already in this corridor. The WMATA 28A covers most of this corridor. It is one of the busiest bus transit corridors in the region. And we're seeing about 4,000 boardings per day, which is about 95% of pre-pandemic ridership. So it's a strong corridor with ridership that is endured throughout the pandemic. Right now, we're in a mobility phase. We've been working on this project for a few years now, but we just got heard last month that we have been awarded a $2 million earmark from the federal government that'll take us all the way through the end of planning for this project. So watch this space. There's going to be a lot going on here over the next couple of years. But of course, NVTC is not the only organization in the region that is working on BRT. There are a couple of other organizations, a couple other jurisdictions working on BRT. I will just highlight one on this slide here. The Richmond Highway, now called the One, is a project being planned by Fairfax County right now. It goes from Huntington Metro down to Fort Belvoir. It's expected to begin operation in 2030. So a bit of a smaller corridor than what we're planning for the Envision Route 7. But we can see here that they're a little bit further ahead with some of the branding and some thoughts about, and some work on headways and everything. So you'll be seeing this before the Envision Route 7 comes along, but it's another project that's been happening in the corridor. So what are we working towards? So I highlighted Envision Route 7 and I highlighted the One, but these aren't the only things happening in the region. This map here, and I especially appreciate help of one of our program analysts, Sophie Spiotopoulos, putting this together, shows the BRT connections and routes that we are developing in Northern Virginia. What we're working towards is a network of BRT, of high frequency transit, because it's not just BRT, it connects to Metro Rail as well. So we have the Fairfax example, MPC, Metroway, but then we also have a couple of examples being worked on by the city of Alexandria, for example, Duke Street in motion, West End Transitway, etc. What this all gets us is more reliable, more efficient, more equitable, and more environmentally friendly ways for people to move around the region. BRT itself expands access to jobs, creates faster, more reliable trips, is more affordable than single occupancy vehicle alternatives, creates fewer greenhouse gas emissions, and improves the region's mobility. So providing a network of BRT really enhances mobility in the region. And finally, how are we getting there? Regional coordination is really critical here. WMATA is working with all of these jurisdictions to help figure this stuff out. Northern Virginia Transit Authority is working with funding as well as some planning help to figure out where BRT should go. NVTC, like I said, is working on this stuff with project planning as well as regional planning. We're also learning from each other, not just from the region though. GITC, the Pulse, opened a few years ago, and we are already learning some of the things they experienced down in Richmond. VDOT, who worked with GITC on that project, is bringing lessons learned for the Fairfax The One, for example. And the One project in Fairfax is helping NVTC learn what works and what doesn't. And finally, we couldn't do this without a lot of support from both an oversight and funding point of view from DFPT and FTA, but also really strong support from the other transportation staffers at all the organizations in the region, as well as elected officials and transportation leadership, and finally, the community that we're working within. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. That's good timing and great update. We'll now go to Melissa Kim, who's the Program Manager, Metro's Office of Planning. Melissa, you can go ahead and share yours, and I'll put your title and bio in the chat.
All right, great. You able to see my screen?
Yes.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Kim. Uh-oh. Is it still working?
Yes, it is. For us, it is.
Oh, okay, perfect. I got a notification that Zoom unexpectedly quit, so I'm glad that's not active. All right. I work in Metro's Office of Planning, and I'm a Deputy Project Manager for Metro.
Whoops. It did quit on her. Aisha, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right,
Okay.
I think I'm back in.
All right.
Okay, let me try to share my screen again. Maybe I should turn my video off so that doesn't happen again. All right, let's try this again. Anyhow, not sure where it cut out. I'm a deputy project manager for Metro's bus network redesign project, and really happy to be here today. Thank you to NVTC and CSG for hosting this event, and it's really exciting to hear some of the results from the region's major bus planning efforts, especially as we at Metro are really kicking our project into high gear. So we kicked off our project, the Better Bus Network Redesign project, in the summer of 2022. And a bus network redesign, as you've just heard, is something that many of our peers are doing, some of our local jurisdictional partners are doing. As Martin spoke to earlier, Alexandria just finished their network redesign project in 2019 and successfully implemented their new network recently. It's an exciting opportunity for us at Metro because we haven't looked at our network holistically since it was developed. And through this project, we know we can address a lot of the needs shown here on this slide. So really making sure, for example, we're connecting to where people need to go when they want to go, and we're building a network that promotes equity. Okay. The team wrapped up the first phase of the project at the end of last year, and we're now about a third of the way through the project, as you can see from this graphic here. We're aiming to have finalized networks by the end of this calendar year, and that means we're going to be going out to the public again in April and May with actual networks. And we're excited to dig into those with the public, with jurisdictional partners, and with all of you to figure out where service should go, frequency, span, questions along those lines. We know this is a hugely technical project, but just as much as that, it's a really important project focused on outreach and communications. So in the first phase of outreach, we had 18 pop-up events across the region, 10 bus stop chats, and through those events, we talked to over 10,000 people. We've also had listening sessions with public officials. We've gone to each of our bus divisions to hear from our operators because they know the service really well. We've had meetings with community organizations and others to hear what they need our bus service to be. And our largest form of direct feedback was our more formal survey, which we got about, I think, a little over 6,500 responses to. And because of the regional nature of this project, we also know that it's really critical that we partner with our jurisdictional partners to make sure they're a part of the network design process here. So members of staff from our jurisdictional partners are on our technical committee. Actually, I believe most of the people who are speakers today are on that committee, and that group meets regularly and provides input and direction for the project. And as we've started to develop network options, we've had a couple, we're also having more workshops with our jurisdictional partners to make sure that we're working together to design the bus system that the region really needs. First and foremost, we heard through the survey and through our other interactions, 45% of respondents noted that the service is really good or excellent. So that tells us we don't need to throw everything out and draw everything again. We want to be really thoughtful about where we're proposing large changes, where those opportunities for improvement are. And as Stuart spoke to earlier, and a lot of the other presenters, across all of our engagement, shorter wait times, so frequency of service and arriving on time, so reliability of service, those were the two things that really came out loud and clear across the board. And that's consistent with what we heard in the bus transformation project as well. All of that outreach really helped us develop our vision for a great bus network for this project. So again, what we heard is the bus needs to go where and when people are traveling. So that's the regional connectivity piece. Frequent, reliable service is critical. So that's really getting to that quality customer and operator experience. And then finally, equity. We need to make sure that the bus is playing its part in addressing racial and social inequities in the region. So really ensuring that through this project, the bus increases access to opportunity for historically disenfranchised communities and residents. So ultimately, to transport more customers, create safer streets, and improve air quality. But to do that, it's got to do these basic things really well first. Our goal is to develop the visionary network that the region needs. We're working, again, as I mentioned, with partners in the region and their networks. Quick reminder, if you haven't heard much about the project, we're also redesigning the bus network in Prince George's County and the Q network in City of Fairfax as part of this project. We're participating in Montgomery County's Ride on Reimagine, just like we participated in the Alexandria Transit Vision study that Martin spoke to earlier. And again, we're working with all the other jurisdictions and their operators to really identify where service needs to happen in the region and where and when do our collective customers need this service. And also simultaneously, we're working to develop a network that is more feasible to implement right away. And then don't need to spend much time on this slide since I probably lost some time with the connectivity issues, but if you want to get more information, we have a newsletter that you can sign up for on the website. And we also have a resources page up on the website where you can read some of the summary documents that really get into more details about what we learned in both the engagement and the technical analysis in phase 1. So that's it for me. Thanks.
Terrific. Thank you. And we have a return visit from Xavier to talk about how NVTC is working to coordinate the local agencies and to coordinate with WMATA on their study.
Hi all, it's me again. So now I'm going to be talking about our NVTC's regional bus analysis. Basically, it's a vision for coordinated Northern Virginia bus network. So why a regional bus analysis? We've heard a lot about different network redesigns that are happening in the region. Essentially, there are 6 bus providers in Virginia that must provide transit strategic plans, what we call TSPs, or used to be called TDPs, transit development plans, for the Commonwealth. So this is a DFET requirement, the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation. So each of these agencies, you see it on the left of the screen, have to create these documents that basically say, how are we going to move forward in the future without transit? But there's no real regional context and an analysis that connects all these different strategic planning documents together. NVTC's study will be a macro level view that crosses jurisdictions and service areas and finds opportunities for regional collaborations and efficiencies. We're essentially stitching together all these different strategic documents into one holistic document. So as part of this work, we are going to be looking at what currently exists. So to begin, TSP was a 2018 requirement. And so there's a lot of these documents are current or under development being worked through. But there are 6 documents right now that are going to be put together through a meta-analysis as one of our first tasks to look at what is the existing bus service, what are the planned changes, and then how the asset capital management managed for each of these agencies. And we're also looking at a summary of financial needs. This is a regional summary of projected short-term and long-term needs for operating capital, really getting a good picture of what's happening, what's going to happen, and what are the financial impacts. But then we're not just going to stop there. We're going to start looking into the future. So there are 3 elements of this, and I think again our program analyst Sophie Spielotopoulos are putting this map together. This shows as of end of last year, I think it was November, all the bus networks in Northern Virginia, as well as VRE and Metro Rail. So you can see there's a lot of there's not a lot of crossover for some of these networks, but what we are looking at is just considering the current and planned services, where are the service gaps, time of day, day of week, those kinds of things. Then considering these gaps, where are the opportunities for shorter term, new transit corridors, and longer term, new high capacity corridors. These could be new BRT corridors, for example. And then where are the opportunities for buses to cross jurisdictions where they haven't really done before. And then finally, considering the space and money constraints we see as a region, the operator constraints that I saw as a concern shared by many of my peers in transit in the region, as well as some of the community here. There are opportunities to share infrastructure and other resources, but how do we do that? Where are the opportunities to share maintenance and storage, fueling, offices? How do zero emission buses change or affect things? These are things that we're considering through this work. And I really appreciate Melissa Kim going before me, because the network redesign is a really important piece of this, but they're not doing quite the same work as us at NVTC. There's also regional transit work taking place right now with some key differences. So while the WMATA bus network redesign predominantly focuses on WMATA and Q in Northern Virginia, the NVTC regional bus analysis focuses on just the Northern Virginia bus operators. So the 6 operators that don't include WMATA. We also have slightly different definitions of geography, slightly different levels of analysis. But there's all these differences mean that we're trying not to recreate the wheel, so to speak. So while the network redesign really looks at service level planning, we're looking at high level opportunities that we need to explore in the future. Where are the things we need to study in more detail? Where are the things we can work on in the future? We also recognize MBTA, another regional organization, is doing some work in this space too. Again, a little bit different to us, but As I mentioned before, regional coordination is really key here. Staff are involved in neighboring procurement processes. Staff are included in technical advisory committees, as Melissa pointed out earlier, for neighboring studies and projects. So NVTC staff are involved in the technical advisory committee for the network redesign. And we've had WMATA staff helping out with our procurement process as well. There's a lot of regional coordination that is key to make sure that we're not just repeating what everyone else is doing. Really want to ensure that we emphasize that these are public dollars and we want to make sure that we do a value add and that everything is a contribution to better transit in the region. So finally, for this presentation, what are the next steps? So for this particular project, we're seeking to approve it to execute a contract with our chosen consultant team in 2 weeks. So this project is getting started a little bit later than the network redesign. Again, this helps us understand, make sure that we're not just repeating the work and we're carrying on from the work or adding to the work that WMATA, our neighbors in WMATA are doing. The work should take about 12 months. You can see that the timeline, proposed timeline down the bottom there. And finally, we thank you to DRPT and our NVTC member jurisdictions for their financial support that made this possible. And we're looking forward to what we can put together as a region. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that rapid fire set of presentations. All of our speakers can go on camera if you can, and I'll go to the questions. The first one we had was from Monique from NVTC, asking about the demographics of the riders. I think we've got, 2 specific local systems we can ask about. Martin, tell us first about Dash, and then I'll go to Michael for Fairfax Connector.
Sure, thank you. We do have some data we can share on that. I can just briefly share my screen here. This is just a snapshot of the ridership survey data that we collected. It was generally in line with the overall population. I would just caveat that the survey we did was back in August and September of this year. It was about 1,000 responses, which is smaller than we'd kind of hoped. And we will be doing a follow-up survey that has hopefully a larger sample size. So we should have more information on that. But I think it's skewed a little bit. There was some underrepresentation of certain groups, especially low income. But I would just highlight some of the facts here, and whoever wants to get a copy of this report, happy to send that to them as well.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, so in Fairfax County, we're very similar, obviously, across the nation in terms of demographics for transit. 60% of our riders are low income, from low income households. So that's the big number. The rest are of different levels of income. Most of them do not have vehicles to drive or only have one vehicle in their household. So the majority, as I said, the majority of our riders are low income, and the majority of them are minorities.
And while you're on, Chris had a question about how many people are qualifying for the half fare and know about it and how to use it, and how streamlined is the application process? Well,
I'm not the project manager in that. We can always get you information. The program has not started yet. It is supposed to start this spring. So we can't get you any information about who exactly is doing it or how they're doing it, but we're working on all those particulars. But later on, if we do this again in another date, we hopefully will have more information once the program gets started.
Okay, thanks. And Xavier, Stuart Whitaker has a question about whether ITTP has rated the quality of the BRT systems, either the Route 1 or the Route 7. Plus, if Martin knows if the Metroway has been rated by ITTP in terms of how high a standard of BRT they are.
As far as I understand, ITTP doesn't rate things that don't exist yet. So because we don't have the actual BRT built for either of these projects, can't really answer that one yet. I don't think. I will say that the Richmond GITC that I mentioned was rated a bronze. I don't know if Metroway has been rated. I only have a sample of things that I'm referring to on my other screen here, but we're hoping to be in the range of the Richmond GITC or better. So bronze is actually not bad for that.
And this includes things like whether they have dedicated lanes and for how much, the frequency, the
Yeah, there is a
information
big,
and all
there's a
that?
lot of different points and different aspects they put together. So they have to have the physical BRT, but it focuses on things like dedicated right-of-way, busway alignment, off-board fare collection, intersection treatments, platform level boarding, all these kinds of things. And they look at the whole corridor as well. So you can get points in some parts of the corridor, not the other parts. So it's this whole complicated sort of scoring process, but the BRT has to be built to do it. So GITC is one that is at least in Virginia, and I know exists, and they got a bronze. So, you know, if we're doing bronze, I think it's a good starting point.
And if you haven't been to Richmond to ride it, come down on the train and ride the Pulse and test it out.
Stuart, I'd like to make a modification to my earlier comment. I got my numbers flipped. It's 60% minority population and 17 to 20% low income. Ride our transit system. I just got my numbers flipped.
And
Good
then,
diversity on
if you
income.
don't mind, I also regionally, I can provide Metro's number for bus if that's of interest, obviously,
Yes.
not just Northern Virginia, but across our bus service, and this is as of our last bus survey, which is a few years old, but our ridership is 84% people of color, 57% people from zero vehicle households, and 50% people with low incomes.
Very helpful. Thank you. And Martin, any luck on looking if IDTP has rated your Metroway at all? If not, we can move on.
No, that's a WMATA route. I actually don't have that.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
Sorry, Melissa.
Yeah, I don't have that answer. I can get back to you though. Try to get back to you.
I've got a question from Mark about opportunities to bring local service between Prince William and Fairfax along Route 1, Dumfries to Huntington, and the 28 connection as well. You know, since Prince William is not part of the Metro Compact or NVTC, is there any discussion, maybe Javier, this is coming up in your discussions, or Michael could add something?
We have talked to OmniRide a few times since the beginning of the pandemic, but not speaking for them. They have their own challenges at this time. So we probably need to get back to, once we finish our transit strategic plan, which does look at connectivity, our system connecting to other systems. We do have other connections that we've looked at. Along Highway 1, we have spoken about how to make that connection a little bit better, but nothing has been drawn up and put on the drawing board. I believe the BRT along Route 1 has a third phase that actually goes into Prince William County, but that has not moved forward in terms of design.
And meanwhile, Mark is a big champion of dedicated bus lane on Route 28 connecting up to Fairfax and that connection. All right. Linda asks about the driver crisis, where she's seeing problems on the 29K, N, and A. And she gets emails about the operational difficulties, but is not sure whether a bus is going to come, whether she's going to be able to get home. I know you guys are all working on that. What information do you have on dealing with the bus shortage? Let's talk about that, and what can you do about the operational challenge that creates, where a bus, suddenly you can't get a bus out?
I can try to start. I am not too involved with those conversations, but I know that our bus planning and bus services divisions are working really hard on efforts to not only attract new operators, but also retain the ones that we have. It's a national problem, and I think everyone around the country is trying to come up with solutions. That's not being considered explicitly in the bus network redesign because it is kind of a visionary project, but it's something that we're aware of, and I'm sure that that's not a satisfying answer when your bus doesn't actually come, but we do have people working hard and coordinating with other agencies trying to fix those challenges on solutions.
I'll just sort of tag on to what Melissa said. It is difficult. It is a challenge. The pandemic changed that for some reason. We're training drivers right now as we speak. We actually delayed a service change a whole month so we can finish our driver training, so we can get more drivers out on the street. We're not missing trips that I know of on our network because we have enough drivers to make what we call pull out. That's when all the buses go out of the garage. So we're okay at the moment, but it is a challenge, as Melissa has stated.
Thank you. Linda also asked about Q-Bus and the problems that on weekends and holidays are only about once an hour and can stop earlier. We don't have the Q-Bus team on here. We weren't able to arrange that in time. So Linda, we'll have to get back to you on that one. John asked if there are any plans for bus service from Tysons to Bethesda, rather because currently you have to come into the city on Metro Rail or bus and come back out.
I'll take that one. There was a plan that DRPT put together. The county, Fairfax County, is working up a plan. We have some funding that's supposed to be coming our way by way, I believe, of VDOT through DRPT. In the near future, we plan to operate a route from Tysons along over the American Legion Bridge to the mall that's up there in Montgomery Mall, and then on to Bethesda. We're working with our partners on that one. There's still much more work to be done on it, but we're hoping that if it all pans out, we'll get that route up and running. I believe later part of this year, early next year, depending upon the availability of vehicles, which is about as easy to get as a new driver these days with all the supply line issues that a lot of agencies are dealing with. It's really coming down to microchips, believe it or not. So we can get the steel, we can get the wheels, we can get the windshields, but the microchips are being the stumbling block. And so once we are able to confirm that we can get those, I think it's 7 or 8 additional vehicles, we'll be able to start moving forward on planning that service.
Okay. We're not going to get to it right away, but just so you know, Stuart Whitaker had asked a couple of questions about sort of the big numbers. How are we doing on greenhouse gas emissions from transportation in Northern Virginia, current and future estimates, and how are we doing on mode share? He didn't specify a specific corridor, but if you have some examples of particular corridors or overall on mode share for bike, walk, transit, and driving, particularly how transit is doing, you can try to pull those up. In the meantime, we have a couple of questions, one from Ellie and one from Ryan that relate to safe access to bus stops. For question for NVTC and local providers, VDOT plays a role in this, as do our local departments of transportation. How are we doing on improving safe access to bus stops and the last mile access, not just walking, but using micromobility?
I will say I saw that was directed at me, that I don't think NVTC is probably the best to answer this one, because the bus stop design is more of a local decision. And so we can sort of look at what others have done, but we can't really talk from our perspective so much about how to improve safety or the actual safety side right now. So I can't help as much as that. But while I'm speaking, I will say for the micromobility thing, again, NVTC doesn't, we have done some a white paper on micromobility in the region, especially looking at City of Fairfax. And I know some of our neighbors are also looking at this stuff. So like OmniRide, for example, is doing a pilot right now in Manassas Park, I believe it is. So there's a lot to watch here. And I think it's really interesting to see what some of those results will be. And while I also I'm speaking, North Virginia, NVTC has a dashboard that we released, made public last year. And in that dashboard, we actually show public transportation commuters using census data. I just put it in the chat, so you can actually look at that. You can sort of see how many people use transit commuting by each jurisdiction of Virginia, as well as the region as a whole. So that is just something that we have on our website to help communicate to everyone how people use transit in the region.
I'm going to add something in there, Stuart, really quickly about the VDOT access and the issues you deal with getting access to bus stops. I know we've had conversations not too recently and with DRPT, VDOT, folks like that, and Jen DeBrule, as her role as the director of Department of Rail and Public Transportation, has made a lot of very public comments recently about understanding the challenges of dealing with what seem like very simple bus stop improvements. A lot of work that really goes into a lot of coordination, takes a lot of effort to actually do that. And something that's on their radar to try to see where the Commonwealth can kind of help smooth that, speed things along, different things like that, because they know it's a challenge that a lot of our jurisdictions deal with because jurisdictions own the land next to it, VDOT right of way. How do you make sure that works? I think it's something they really are anticipating working on going forward.
Stuart, this is Mike from Fairfax. We do have a program, we call it a bus stop safety improvement program. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that we do every single year. I don't have the list, but we do have a list. Our project team, capital project team for the Fairfax County Department of Transportation goes through all our bus stops, looks for ones that we can improve, put in sidewalks, put in bus shelters and elements like that. So we do have a program. We got a lot of bus stops out there. Not every single one of them is accessible, and we're looking at all of them. And as we develop new routes, that's one of the things that we do is do the bus stops. One, does anyone use it? And two, if someone does use it, what does it look like? Can we improve it? Is it safe? So we do that for all of our bus stops when we start looking at service changes.
By the way, the state transit modernization study definitely included a focus on the need to invest in better bus stops and safe access. And there is a bill, I don't have the bill number in front of me right now, to take some of the regional portion of the TRIP funds, those operational funds that DRPT is providing, and to allow those to be used for some of the bus stop improvements. So I haven't looked at it very closely, but take a look at that. I think Virginia Transit Association is leading the push for that use of that funding. I want to, while you guys are thinking about those big numbers on greenhouse gases and mode share, want to note a couple other things. In addition, Xavier's put in the link to the NVTC transit dashboard. I've asked Bill Pugh to pull up the dashboards that Center for Neighborhood Technology has done for Virginia. And turns out Transit Center has also done a dashboard, a transit equity dashboard that includes the DC region. They did it by metro region. So we got dashboards coming out of our ears. Maybe all you transit experts can reconcile all of them, and we'll really have a clear picture of how we're doing in terms of access to better bus service. Bill's put some of the greenhouse gas stats in the chat for you all in the meantime. I want to get to Larry's question. Larry is both a big time biker and bus rider, and he lives down the Route 1 corridor and notes how it's a question about, service planning really for that in terms of, you have the Rex Express and the 171 on the highway. He's wondering if to provide service both off the highway and along it, have you considered increasing frequency along the highway while having shorter routes transfer onto the highway? So there's that question of, do you have them continue through, or do you may have a transfer, which works better for service frequency, ridership time? Michael, I don't know if you want to handle that.
Yes, we call that our bus feeder plan. If you look on our website for our transit strategic plan, you will see that we are modifying our routes. We conceptually modify our routes to make the routes shorter, link them into the new BRT on Highway 1, the 1, and then we'll have other routes that link to Huntington. So we have given that consideration. We're going to continue to look at it because it's going to be a few years before that is actually implemented. And we also have some funding restrictions that we have to consider as we move forward with that planning process. But yes, we did look at it. It is part of our TSP, and we'll continue to move forward with it. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you. So Bill has put the greenhouse gas data, talking about how most of our greenhouse emissions right now are from our transportation sector. We We've got goals by 2030 or 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from all sectors in our region and nationally, and 50% of car sales EVs under the Biden administration goals. But EVs are not going to get us all the way there. Bus transit is going to be a critical part of this, but it's also bus transit connected to walkable communities. And Bill's done a ton of research on this for CSG, and it indicates that we have to reduce the amount we all drive by about 20%. Which means living in more walkable places and using those modes. He's also put in the Center for Neighborhood Technology and Transit Center transit equity dashboards. So I don't see other questions. So I want to go back to how are we doing on mode share? Do you guys have any metrics on that, either for your jurisdiction as a whole, or even for a particular corridor? And one specific corridor Stuart asked about was I-66. How are we doing with non-auto mode share in the I-66 corridor, given the investment in bus in that corridor?
I can try a little bit to answer about the I-66 corridor. As folks may know, NVTC runs the Commuter Choice Program, which actually invests toll revenue we receive from the Commonwealth and our concessionaire partners into multimodal, primarily a lot of transit service along those corridors. We have a program that's actively running right now between 395 and 66. There is a lot of that going on out there. A lot of money has been invested. I think we've funded so far at least 40 or 50 different projects. I'm not sure the exact dollar amount off the top of my head, but I want to say it's probably north of 70 or $80 million at this point. But we can follow up with you about some of that mode share stuff. We've done a lot of analysis throughout within the program, and I can follow up with our program manager. We can get some of that information over to Stuart and his team about mode shift on that corridor.
Terrific. You know, we got to wrap up. I lost track of time at the very end here. We were doing so well and being on time service here. I will also share a presentation when we get a chance. We're going to post it from Arlington on their mode share in the county and how successful their transit-oriented development has been in shifting mode share. I want to thank all of our presenters, Alan and Michael and Martin and Melissa and Xavier, my team at CSG as well, and for everybody who attended. We will post the recording and the presentations. And I want to turn it over to Alan at NVTC to send us home and out of here.
All right, thank you, Stuart, and thank you, everybody, again. Do a quick plug for NVTC, novatransit.org. There's a lot of great information about the stuff we're working on, commuter choice, the stuff that Xavier talked about. So visit our website regularly and take a look at it, and hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Stay in touch with CSG.
Thank you.
Thanks.